Right, well, welcome to Rugby Borough Council's Planning Committee meeting on the 11th of September. I'm the chair of this committee. The meeting is being web streamed to the public through the Council's YouTube channel. During the meeting, when asked to speak, please use the push to talk button on the microphone in front of you. This will allow the camera to pan in your general direction and everyone to hear you. Before we begin the formal agenda, I'm obliged to read out the following fire notice. There is no fire drill scheduled in the building this evening. If the alarm sounds, then please can I ask you to make your way out of the building, down the main staircase, out of the main doors of the town hall and congregate at the entrance to Caldecott Park. An officer of the council will give instructions on when it is safe to return to the building. Well, we'll move on to the agenda. To approve the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of August, can I have a proposal for that? Neil, and a seconder. And all those in favour, please show. No, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Second item is to receive apologies, and I know we've got at least two, have we?
We have apologies from Councillors Howling and Edwards, with Councillors Garcia and Roodhouse being their substitutes respectively. Welcome to this committee.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest defined by the Council's Code of Conduct for Councillors. Any non-pecuniary? Councillor Harrington.
The applications in my ward I represent.
Thank you. Any pecuniary? No. And any notice under section 106 of the Local Government Finance Act 1992, non-payment of community charge or council tax? And we're all clear on that one. In that case, then we'll move on to agenda item 4 on the agenda, and that is Myson House.
(1035) at Myson House is an outline planning application for the demolition of the 6-storey office block.
Sorry, Lucy, if we just pause, we haven't got the on the big screen.
So the application is outlined with all matters reserved for the demolition of the existing 6-storey office block and the construction of 2 6-storey apartment blocks with associated external works and landscaping. The application has previously been presented to the Planning Committee in 2023, and the last occasion was on the 16th of August. At this committee, the application was approved, subject to the conditions and informative set out in the draft decision notice and for the completion of a legal agreement to secure the necessary financial contributions and planning obligations as were outlined in the heads of terms within that officer report. Since that committee decision, the applicant has now presented a viability assessment regarding the proposal and requested contributions. This has been independently assessed for the council. And due to the outcome of the assessments, the application has been brought back to committee this evening for consideration by members. Just as an overview then as well of that specific point, but also for those councillors that haven't previously been on the committee with this application, you can see the Google Earth view that shows the existing building on the site, but it also includes this access and the car park area. The site is located approximately 300 metres to the west of Rugby railway station and is half a mile to the northeast of Rugby town centre. It is bounded by Railway Terrace to the east and by Wood Street to the south. The west of the site lies a recent 3- and 4-storey residential development on the former Woodside Business Park. We have some of the site photos that show the existing building from the car park towards the building, and the redevelopment can also be seen at Cattle Market and also the Stagecoach building. We've also then the view from Railway Terrace up towards the site, and then again looking down towards the railway. As a part of the application, we have been provided a proposed site illustrating how the proposal can be accommodated. This right-hand side image shows the outline of the existing building on site. However, this is only indicative, but it is just to show how it could potentially take place on site that would be dealt with under any reserved matters application. Again, we have an indicative plan for illustration purposes only, as design is a reserved matter. Looking at the principle of development, under policy GP2 of the local plan, the site is located within Rugby town and is a main focus for development in the Borough. As outlined in the report, would be the reuse of previously development land in accordance with the development plan. There is the loss of existing office space, and the conflict of that with ED1 has been addressed, and we've looked at whether it's been demonstrated as to whether it's no longer viable, and there's been various pieces of information provided by the applicant, and then also, as the local plan is now over 5 years old, we've outlined regards the reduction in weight given to that due to the difference within the MPPF, and with the other material considerations such as changes of use that could take place either without the need for planning permission or under prior approvals, means that that conflict is considered to be outweighed by the other material matters. As previously stated, matters regarding layout, scale, appearance, access and landscaping are all reserved for further reserved matters application, but specifically in terms of landscaping and trees, I would point out that there is also additional conditions such as condition 22, ensuring that there is still sufficient planting in regards to the site. Looking at residential amenity, there is a condition provided by environmental health that relates in regards to noise, but there would also be a further assessment at reserve matter stage dependent on what the specific design is that would be brought forward. In terms of highways, there has been sufficient car parking provision, can be shown in the plans that have been provided at this stage, as well as cycle parking and storage with electric charging points, and there's no objection from the Highway Authority. Other matters as outlined in the report, such as flooding, ecology, air quality, archaeology and the energy statement, have all been suitably addressed, and relevant conditions have also been outlined in the draft decision. In terms of the planning obligations, these have been still tested as outlined in the report, and they're on the slide as those which were received by the council. Obviously, since the application was last brought to committee, the council has also then introduced SIL charging. However, proposals that include residential apartments in the urban area have a charging rate of nil. This is due to the higher existing value and higher build costs. So whenever the charging schedule was being established, due to viability, it was already shown that even without SIL, there can be issues in terms of this type of development in this location. Moving then forward to the viability assessment that has been produced and submitted by the applicant. As previously stated, this has been independently assessed on behalf of the council and sensitivity assessed. And it has been determined through this process that any financial contributions, including the provision of affordable housing, would make the scheme unviable. The applicant has provided additional reasoning as to how they would intend to bring the scheme to fruition as a result of the outcome of the appraisals, and they have advised that the applicant has been unable to fully let Myson House for commercial purposes for over 10 years, as there is very little demand for sizable commercial floor spaces. The building is also unsuitable for conversion due to the presence of HAC cement, which suffers from degradation and strength loss, and also the subdivision into smaller commercial spaces hasn't been able to take place. And this is due to lack of demand for this type of lower grade or dated residential or commercial accommodation. With the surrounding area now largely residential, the applicant is willing to take the higher risk, such as a reduced developer's profit for the hope of increased sales values, and that the changing of the site to residential will provide an appropriate use of the site rather than an existing building standing largely vacant and unused. This would also line up with how the opportunity that is stated in the Rugby regeneration strategy for the site. It is designated as a potential for housing development. So as I say, the scheme has been assessed as unviable, meeting the full level of affordable housing in regards to local plan policy H2. It's shown that the scheme would also be unviable without any on-site affordable housing contributions, and this is despite favourable adjustments to build cost and bench land value. In terms of sensitivity analysis, this demonstrates the impact of variable build costs and sales values on the scheme's viability, and this is based on a policy compliance scenario has been carried out. With significant increases in sales values and decreases in construction costs, a policy compliance scheme does become viable. Conversely, though, if values were to decrease and costs were increased by the same amount of 24%, then the deficit would be further exacerbated. It is therefore considered on balance that to provide affordable housing or Section 106 costs would unduly threaten the viability of the scheme, and therefore the delivery of the proposal as a whole, based on the assessments that we've been provided with. However, it is considered that a Section 106 should be entered into regarding the development with a review mechanism installed that considers the scheme's actual sales values achieved and the incurred costs, and this will allow the council to benefit from any significant uplifts in viability resulting from any cost engineering or improvements to the sales market by the time the units come to market. So this would reflect that obviously we're currently at the stage now that we're reviewing an outline, and this would allow the council to have the opportunity, once the units have been built, to then be provided with another review that will cover the costs that have actually been incurred and the value of the units, to then see whether there has been a change from the situation now, and then if there is the opportunity to receive some of the contributions that are outlined, then that would be done through mechanism, because obviously any Section 106 as well will have to take into consideration the fact that we don't have the exact unit numbers yet, so it would have all those various mechanisms and triggers included. Therefore, it is considered that the proposal is still in general accordance, subject to conditions and contributions with the local plan. There's obviously the conflict with policy 81, but this is given limited weight. Obviously, the potential that the development would result in the receipt of none of the requested Section 106 contributions, and this is also a detriment of the scheme. However, weighed against that is the government's commitment to significantly boosting the supply of housing through the framework. In terms of the development, it is considered that there would be the economic benefits of new jobs, new homes, and there would also be the new homes bonus with council tax revenue. Socially, we would continue to meet housing demand in the sustainable location of the Borough and the environmental contributions that could also be achieved. Therefore, the application is presented to committee again that it should be approved subject to the conditions and informatives outlined in the draft decision notice, with the completion of a legal agreement to secure the further viability review, and with the Chief Officer provided with the delegated authority to make the changes as outlined on screen. Thanks, Chair.
Got any points of clarification to ask the officer? Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you for the report. It's really about the number of reserved matters there, and the fact, therefore, we aren't perhaps looking at the full plan. Some of the things I would like to have in that consideration, and just want to raise them now in terms of what clarity we get on this, would be the suitability of this accommodation for people who have reduced mobility, for example. The fact that there would need to be 2 lifts in the buildings of this type in order to do, and matters of that type. I also understand that we are looking at the style of the building, and therefore how will these reserved matters of that type be looked at?
Yep, so in terms of mobility and lifts. I believe a lot of that as well is also required under building control. So yes, we would be looking at design and making sure that I think one of the points that I've raised in the report as well is the matter that some of the units that are shown from when it was submitted don't fully meet the national described design space standards, but certainly whenever that came in at reserve matters, that would be a point that would be being picked up and in line with the sustainable design and construction and climate change SPD that we have, we would be ensuring that that would be addressed. And then yes, for the plans to be approved, there would need to be that issue of mobility addressed. But yes, and in terms of how the building would look, that would be addressed at the reserve matters. They've just given the indicative at this stage to provide an example, but it is certainly that's not what's being approved. That would be being fully assessed and would be going out to consultation again to surrounding residents as well for consideration at the reserve matter stage.
Councillor Harrington.
Yeah, thank you for the report. I know it's for demolishment, but reading the report and you reading it out tonight, I'm very concerned about parking. Reason being is, if you look at the cattle market, you've got Gravel Lane. I'm going through a battle at the moment for Warwickshire County Council to get that sorted out. I always walk down to Tesco from the Bath Street, 94, 96 cars. Part there, it's quite dangerous. And also residents of Farmer Court can't get out. Now, the thing I've got the issue with, one, is not enough parking, but I know that's not, I know there's laws behind it, I appreciate that. But no one thinks about that on the residents around it. So you've got the sidings, which has no parking provisions, and you're going to get residents who are going to be parking in there straight away, and I've got experience of that, I'm saying that for a fact. Also, you've got Wood Street, you've got Kimberley, Alexander. I know they've got TROs, and also you've got 1 hour, 2 hours no return. But to be honest with you, the visits from Warwickshire County Council are not very good. So to be honest with you, I'm just very concerned we're going to put we need to learn mistakes from from the cattle market, because there's massive mistakes made there. And I just think, I know we're doing demolition, but is there any sort of considerations, or we can put something on for the next plan? Because I'm very concerned that I'll be dealing with I'll be picking up the pieces again that I've done previously. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, just in response to that, the parking that is proposed with the site does meet that of the local plan policies, which is a difference to some of those other examples that you've given. As is shown on the proposed, they are still keeping the car parking area that is there on the site. That's not proposed to go. And one of the additional changes that was added to this application as well, following the concerns that was raised, is addressed in condition 25, which was in regards to the requirement to review that no apartment should be occupied until an on-street parking monitoring plan has been submitted, and this is to look at the process of monitoring and surveying the on-street parking levels where there is the traffic regulation order, so there is that condition as well. Hopefully that is to ensure that there is sufficient parking provision for existing occupiers in the area and in the interest of highway safety and traffic flows.
Councillor Sivastava. Oh, Richard's going to come in.
Yeah, just to add to that, you mentioned about the local plan and going forward. Obviously, as you're aware, that process is currently ongoing, and we as officers, as well as probably yourselves as councillors, and I guess hopefully local residents as well, will be inputting into that process. And one of that will be to look at the detail, including our parking standards. So, you know, I obviously encourage people to respond to that process, because obviously, as you say, it's only through perhaps things that happened in the past that we can perhaps influence in the future.
Councillor.
I think in terms of education, there are a lot of families they are moving. So there will be some school provision consideration have to be made, because Northland is all quite full. So we have to see how that is being considered.
Yeah, in terms of education, there was the contribution requested to address that, but obviously one of the other things that we'd need to look at as to whether that would be taken forward would depend on any final proposal that would come through at reserve matter stage, because it'll depend on what the unit type is as to whether there would be any education requests. The units would need to have more than 2 bedrooms before there would be education requests, but a lot of that would then be having to be dealt with either at the reserve matter stage, or then if the application is approved with the triggers in the section 106, then it could be looked at as to whether there would then be an opportunity potentially at a later stage to gain that.
So part of the review mechanism process is if we get to a stage where there is a profit share such that contributions can be made under Section 106 from the updated viability assessment, one of the steps we take in that is to look at the contribution requests that we received at the early stage and work out a priority order in conjunction with Warwickshire County Councillors where that money should go first. So if there isn't enough to cover all the contributions, those conversations about do we prioritise education over, say, libraries will take place to make sure that the money has been spent in the best way possible for whatever we get from that process.
Thanks for that. Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised to see that a developer with the experience of Stepnells would have difficulties making this scheme financially viable. Can we clarify when we would revisit this issue?
So there are a couple of different methods that we can use for the viability review mechanism process, and apologies if some of you have sat through this mini lecture before. But where viability isn't achievable on site, and we think there is the potential for it to be achievable later on site, we have a couple of options. So the first one is an early stage review, where if they haven't started construction on site within, say, 18 months, we ask for an updated viability review because costs and assumptions will have changed. The second is a late stage review, which is what is proposed in this situation, where we want the development to be substantially completed. So we're looking at 75 to 80% of the units completed. So we have a real indication of costs incurred and market values that they're achieving to update the viability review mechanism to understand what their profit is going to be and therefore whether there's a profit share. And then on some very large schemes, we do a combination of both, particularly if it's a phased development. So for this particular scheme, the late stage review is probably the most appropriate because it will give us proper numbers that have actually been incurred and achieved. And we're probably looking at about 75-80% mark where there's enough of the development done that we can extrapolate, but not leaving the trigger so late that they might never get to it.
Councillor Sanderson.
Some problems that when we looked at this, in terms of social housing, where there is quite a substantive amount of social housing within the locality. We've got the sidings, we've got at Westside Park, we've got it at Railway Terrace, which is our own council housing. We've also got Omega Place, which is a social housing landlord. So there's quite a substantive amount of social housing in that locality. So whether the demand is there for more social housing, I have some doubts. In terms of the comment by Sarah Just, should we have that reflective within the informative chair so that we can see that we want to do that late stage review?
So for your benefit, we'll put in the resolution that a late stage review will be in the section 106, so that will be entered into before the decision is granted. So it will be more robust than having...
So what I want is for this planning committee's position to be 100% crystal clear that we expect that review to take place.
Understood. So we will minute that in the resolution, but the resolution currently has that in it, that review is a requirement in the section 106, and that will be documented and entered into before the decision notice is granted. So that's already in the resolution that's presented to committee.
Right. The other thing is, I'm very disappointed with Warwickshire County Council. We've been talking about better transport corridors from the railway station to the town centre for many, many years. Pre-cattle market dates, and yet the county councils come forward with the aspiration, but with no worked up plans on how we would deliver that modal shift from the railway station to the town centre. And I feel that they've missed yet another opportunity to make that possible. I very much agree with Councillor Harrington in terms of the congestion around the railway station. It seems to be that commuters want free parking everywhere, and if it happens to be on a private site of a housing development, again, West Parkway, Omega Place, the doctor's surgeries, they will crowd in there at any kind of gavel close, again, that was mentioned. So again, there's a real problem in that area in high levels of traffic congestion, but no encouragement for modal shift. And I think that's quite an oversight by Warwickshire County Council. But overall, Chair, in terms of the report and the recommendation, I'm happy to support the recommendations of the officer.
Okay, have we got any other points of clarification? Or looks like we've drifted into the debate already. But okay, do you want to just repeat your proposal then, Councillor?
In terms of the clarity on the informatives, in terms of what we want to see on the informative and the document. The other one was tree planting because of the pollution from the dirty diesels, from the shunting from the trains, because that pollution and the particulate matter will affect the occupants of the flats of these flats. So good quality tree planting that reduces the impact from particulate matter. Again, mindful of the congestion within the area as it comes forward. Try to get the county council to put forward indicative schemes for implementation for traffic improvements.
Okay, let's get the officer to respond.
Okay, in terms of trees, we do have condition 22 and 23 that specifically relate to that matter. Also under condition 14, the reserve matters application covers the measures to improve air quality through in regards to controlling on-site emissions. So those conditions are included in the draft decision. There's also the one in regards to the developer, before any apartment would be occupied, that residents should be provided with their sustainable travel information as well. Those are already included within the draft decision presented to Council.
Thanks again. Do you want to
I
respond?
don't think it actually covered trees in the pollution side of it. Trees are very good for absorbing pollution and emissions from shunting trains, and that is a real problem in that area.
Okay, we'll make a note of that. Right, let's move into the debate then. Let's hear from any other councillors who want to chip in. I can see they're all very eager to respond.
Chair, I've proposed it. Is there a seconder?
Okay, we've got a proposer from Councillor Sanderson.
Yeah, I would be happy to second approval.
Okay, and a seconder from Councillor Lawrence. So, if there's any further comments? Okay, right. Okay, so we're okay. No further comments. Anybody want to chip in anything? So they've got concerns over that? Want to just? No, we're okay with that. In that case, then we'll move to the vote. All those in favour of approval, please show. And that's unanimous. Thank you. So that is approved.
No, I was sorry.
Okay, so it's right. Advance notice of site visits.
None further received.
None?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, and then we move on to delegated decisions. I know we've got lots of questions to ask on that. Noted. Okay. In that case, then that draws the meeting to a close. Another one of those busy meetings. Thank you all. Thanks for attending. Thank you.